Welcome back, everyone, to our latest in our podcast series on how culture drives innovation. Very excited for today. I'm here with David, the Chief Revenue Officer of Remofirst. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Really excited to jump in. I've been following Remofirst growth and big fan of some of your investors. It's been incredible and rapid, to say the least. But I'd love to maybe start by if you could give me a bit of background on yourself and then an overview of Remofirst.
Sure. So I am the Chief Revenue Officer at Remofirst, and we are an organization that helps our clients hire and employ talent in over 180 countries around the world. We're an employer of record. So with that, we help them manage things like compliance, payroll, benefits, and all aspects of HR and employment law in any one of those 180 countries. As the Chief Revenue Officer, I focus on everything sales, marketing, revenue operations, customer success, and also commercial partnerships. And of course, we have functional team leaders for each of those departments that are all doing an amazing job and helping me ensure that we can continue to grow and succeed as we move along. I've been in the HR and sort of global expansion space for almost 15 years. I've been mostly focused in this industry. I was an early employee at another employer of record that was one of the kind of initial companies to enter into the space, and have spent a lot of time dealing with small and medium-sized businesses and particularly HR and finance leaders who are contemplating global growth and are trying to think about how best to approach that with their team. So that's a little bit about me and about Remofirst.
Really interesting. And what I like about Remofirst is you're reimagining how companies can grow.
Yes.
And the biggest and most important resource most companies have is humans. And I love that Remofirst helps you expand the horizon of where you can access and employ those people from. And at the same time, people are building Remofirst. And
Yes.
so people are serving people. So one thing that's been a topic of conversation for us has been looking at the comprehensiveness of the Remofirst platform. Like there's a lot of innovation in there. So I'd love to maybe hear from you, and I'm sure your go-to-market, I'm sure is equally innovative, if not as evident. Talk to me about your team. So talk to me about how innovation happens at Remofirst and anything maybe distinctive about the culture.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for that. So, I think one of the really unique things about the Remofirst team is that we're still a relatively small team. We're about 150 people, but despite being about 150 people, we're active in about 30 countries today in terms of our internal team. So I think that's about as geographically diverse as you can be for a company of our size. And I think that's important for a few reasons. And the first is that it allows us to tap into, diverse experiences and backgrounds from, literally all over the world and tap into those people and have them bring their voices and experiences into the organization. So as we work on developing products, as we work on supporting our customers, as we work on selling to and marketing to our prospective customers, we are, capturing a global market with a global team. I think the other aspect of that is we are in many ways our own best customer. So because we're going through this ourselves and working on building this global team across 30 countries as a 150 people organization, we are having to grapple with some of those challenges and understand the nuances of doing business in all of those different jurisdictions. So we get that benefit of those unique voices from all around the world, but then we can experience it ourselves. So as we go to innovate and develop new products, and some of the things that we've been proud of more recently are developing visa and expat and work permit solutions in almost 90 countries and offering localized benefit solutions in almost 100 countries. Those are things that we can effectively use on ourselves before we actually turn them around and put them out into the world with our customers. And that's a really unique advantage that we have.
So what you're describing is the dream for most CEOs, which is pulling from a global talent pool and then directly translating that into revenue. So you get to go to market now with an international customer base. There's almost no limits.
That's right.
But I mean, I see this from our work, like that's hard. Kind of building a culture that's cohesive when you probably have many languages across teams and backgrounds and experiences. So maybe walk me through how do you figure out some sort of, collective identity mission? Like how does that happen at Remofirst?
So I think in terms of aligning around the collective identity and mission, I don't want to say it's easy because it isn't, as you said, there are some inherent challenges to having that global of a team. But I think we are all living and aligned to the mission that we're trying to deliver on for our customers. So we're engaging people who are living in parts of the world that maybe otherwise would never have had the opportunity to be a part of a venture-backed organization with our technical headquarters being in San Francisco. They otherwise would never have been able to tap into that type of opportunity. And so they can come and work at Remofirst and contribute. And then they realize that we're then turning around and delivering that same solution to our customers. And so everybody can kind of share that same passion and excitement around what we are enabling for our customers. So I think that's something that just by existing each day, like we are kind of aligning around that vision. Beyond that, to your point, yes, of course, there are language challenges, there are time zone challenges, there are all the things that, sort of the real things that do get in the way of us interacting and collaborating on a day-to-day basis. And it just, I think, requires constant attention and continued refining where we work in mostly an asynchronous way. While we are open to hiring people in all parts of the world, we do have to be sensitive in any particular role to, the time zones that they're going to be operating in, and making sure that it wouldn't be impossible for example, somebody in customer success to get on the phone with a customer. We need to make sure that we have alignment in that way. So we do pay attention to those kinds of realities. I think it's also just about just being sensitive each day to the realities of the person who you're interacting with internally. It's difficult for me sitting in Boston, Massachusetts, to understand, the national holiday that may be occurring in India today, and the fact that my team might be not working today, and understanding those things. So yeah, it's a constant work in progress, but I think in our experience, the benefits significantly outweigh, some of those challenges that do get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's an open-mindedness
Yeah.
that not every company has to take a chance on people,
Yes.
just because they don't have the perfect resume.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about startup is you get to start from scratch, and kind of you don't have the legacy history of, trying and failing to hire in Argentina.
Yes.
So was that a concerted decision at Remofirst to say, hey, we want to reflect our customer base? Or how did that decision come about to hire so globally?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a part of it that happened almost inadvertently, like that was the experience of, especially one of our founders is originally from Kazakhstan, and one of the things that he'll talk about quite a lot is that some of the opportunities that he wanted to take advantage of as a young professional just simply didn't exist to him in Kazakhstan. And so his only option was to look elsewhere for opportunity, and in his case that meant initially relocating to the UK and finding work opportunities there. But in going through that experience, he realized, well, there's got to be a lot of other people like me out there who are, smart and capable and ambitious, but maybe just didn't, they weren't born in the right place in order to tap into some of those opportunities. And so his biases toward where we could hire, the types of talent we could engage, were so different than, otherwise what you might think of as your traditional venture-backed founder. And so we were able to just throw a lot of those assumptions out. And you made the point a minute ago that as we posted, new jobs, whether it be in my case, and sales and marketing initially, or thinking about our product and engineering team, we threw out every conventional wisdom about where those people had to work prior to coming to Remofirst, or how many years of experience they had, because we just were seeing that we were able to tap into great talent from anywhere. And that meant you couldn't hire somebody who had had 5 years at Google prior to Remofirst, because Google wasn't hiring in those parts of the world. So how could you make that assumption? We had a great example of an SDR that we hired who initially, spent their first year here just cold calling and sending cold emails to potential prospects. It turns out, at night they were going to school for computer science and had done some projects for us on the side. And fast forward 2 years later, they're a critical developer doing front-end engineering work that is, impacting our entire customer base. And, at least in my experience in the past, you'd never see that kind of trajectory, but I think we've enabled it.
You anticipated my next question was going to be, is there an example of someone who really surprised you? But as you, like that SCR example, I mean, it sounds like a very motivated individual. And so I
Yes.
guess, again, that's the secret sauce for most CEOs.
Right.
I'm sure there's some internal motivation there. Was there anything that you did to keep that motivation alive and continue to support and develop that person, or kind of what was that secret sauce?
I think it was just about showing individuals like that person and others that everybody could have a voice in what we were building at Remofirst. I think we naturally, like the team that we developed early on was, it was a very flat organization, maybe naturally because we were very small at that point, but we, I think, demonstrated and tried to reinforce the idea that anybody, regardless of the years of experience and also regardless of where they might fit on the organizational chart, was going to be able to have a positive impact on the success of the business. And we kept seeing that. I think our initial person running customer success, or maybe running it by default because they were the only customer success person at the time, like had zero customer success experience, but they were just showing that they had a passion toward helping our clients. And so we tried to build on that. And if that worked for us in the early days when we had some of our fastest growth, why wouldn't it continue to work for us as we scale? So in a way, we were sort of like proving ourselves right all along. And then the team members that we brought into the organization were reinforcing that as well.
Have you ever been wrong? Or has there ever been like, something you did that didn't quite work out, or you had to pivot and course correct?
Yeah, I mean, at this, we are growing very quickly, as you mentioned at the beginning, and we're in a hyper competitive industry that is constantly evolving. And so, yeah, I'd be lying if I told you that we've gotten it right all the time. But I think what I'm excited about is that we've not lost some of our faith in that approach. Like, just because, you may have those one or two mistakes that you make in hiring, or maybe, product decisions or things like that. We're not throwing out that philosophy and saying, okay, let's go back to the old way of doing things. We've stuck by our belief that, we can still build in this way. We can still find talent all over the world. Yeah, so we're
Yeah, I
we're
mean, it's
not
a great
letting those
example.
mistakes get in our way. So yeah.
I mean, that's a really good learning. And I think we talk a lot about tone from the top and tone from day one.
Mhm.
And one thing that's striking me as you talk is the fact that you have removed a lot of that bias. I'm sure there's still some, but a lot of it from the hiring process.
Yeah.
I would think when somebody comes in, they assume that it's going to be a pretty open and fair and welcoming environment. And so it's almost yours to lose at that point.
I agree.
That SCR would, probably entered and thought, if they took a chance on me here, why would
Right.
they take a chance on me as a developer?
100%. Yeah, no, that's right.
So as you look ahead, I guess, and this is what I think about every day is, as we grow, how do we keep that alive? Like, how do we keep that spirit alive? Is there anything that you're thinking about in next, as you guys triple and quadruple in growth? How do you plan to kind of reinforce and entrench those really positive cultural elements?
That's interesting. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind is that I think we know that our industry is evolving very, very quickly, and we're also in a relatively young industry. Like, employer of record, for what it's worth, like, really most people didn't even know that it existed more than 5 years ago, and so for us, like, it's not hard to kind of continue with that belief that the best people for our organization aren't necessarily the people with that 20 years experience, or and then I think there's a reality again with the evolution of our industry. Like, AI is going to impact our industry. There are all sorts of new technologies that are coming into play that are going to make some of what we do better, faster, more efficient. And again, that's another example of an industry that is evolving so quickly. And maybe some of the people that traditionally had kind of the inside track on technology and where it's going are sort of outdated already and everything. So I think it's actually really important that we continue to be nimble and be open in the way that we think about how we bring talent in, because I think some of the best ideas are probably going to come from the people with the fewest preconceived notions about how things should be, and they can help us think about new ways of working, new ways of supporting our customers. So yeah, I don't know exactly how to say we're going to keep it alive, but I think it's more important now than ever.
And I think, if I were to summarize Remofirst in a very kitschy venture capital pitch deck way, I would say you're democratizing opportunity, both internally and externally. I think that's a really special place to be.
We talk about, our favorite phrase is freedom of work. And, that said another way, to your point, it's democratizing access to talent, democratizing access to great opportunities from a career perspective. And it's a really fun space to be in too. There are all sorts of macro trends that are impacting every business, in 2025, and conflicts around the world that are going to have, negative impacts on business and all that sort of thing. But we think we're in this unique industry that will persist despite all of those challenges, and in many ways actually become more important in a world like the one that we're living in today. The other thing that we did touch on earlier is that it's really unique, especially from the seat that I'm in as the chief revenue officer, that you could find a business that has an almost unlimited addressable market. And we actually are in that position. I mean, we choose to focus on particular segments and geographies as you naturally would, but any small business, medium-sized business, enterprise business in any part of the world would be looking to engage talent across borders. And so we're pretty excited about the white space opportunity there.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, you're exactly right, place to be in. You've got political backlash, you've got, of course, certain leaders retrenching, but the tailwinds are in your favor. Demographics are changing, technology is on its way. So
Right.
again, good place to be in.
We agree. Yeah.
Anything, David, you'd want to leave us with?
No, I think I think that is a great place to leave it. That we are very excited about the future, and we're very kind of bullish about the opportunity that we're going to be able to take advantage of. We've got all sorts of new products that are continuing to come into the market, and just continuing to evolve the way that we're supporting our customers. We think we have a unique advantage because of the incredible team that we've built and the incredible team that we're continuing to build. So no, we're very excited.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your wisdom.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
You too.